I was completely wrong about what it takes to be an articulate speaker, and I don't want you to make the same mistake. You see, when I was coaching people very early on in my career, I thought I had to coach them to be perceived as an amazing public speaker. So other people watch them and say, wow, no filler words. You're so smooth with your words. Look at this vocabulary you're using. And the more time went on, the more I realized that, okay, everyone sounds the same when they do this. Everyone's taking pauses. Everyone sounds a little rehearsed, a little choreographed. Maybe this is not the right approach. But I didn't know how to fix it. I had no idea. I was doing a workshop, and there was many people there in the workshop. And there was a woman who came and sat right at the back. She did not participate in any way. She didn't come and say anything, but I could see that she was paying attention the entire time. The workshop was over, went about my life until the next time. Next workshop, she shows up again. The next workshop, she shows up again. And every single time, she does not participate. Now, what I do in my workshops, I try to get people to speak because most of the time people are afraid. They don't want to speak. They just want to come and listen and do nothing. So I want to bring them on stage and I want to get them to participate. So I'm seeing her coming time and time again, and I'm thinking, okay, I think it's time for me to bring her up. I might have to force her a little bit, but if I do that, she'll finally be put out of her comfort zone and she'll make progress. So I said, why don't I bring you up in front of this audience and I'll give you a topic and you can talk about that. I said, why don't you come up? And she very slowly looked around and I could tell she was afraid and people started clapping for her. She got up, slowly walked to the front of the stage. I shook her hand and I gave her a topic. This was a topic a mentor of mine mentioned in her story as well, which was, tell me about the last time you had a kiss, or tell me about your last kiss, something like that. And I went and sat back down. And she heard that question and she just paused. And she paused. Silence. Nothing. 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. It was the most agonizing part of the entire workshop. People are looking at me like, you should probably step in there and stop her because maybe she's having a panic attack. And just when I'm about to get up, she finally says something. And she said something that forever changed my perspective on public speaking. She said, my last kiss would have been to my grandmother right before she passed. And then she walked back and sat in her seat. That was her entire speech. One single sentence. And it's been almost a decade since I heard that speech, and I'm still narrating to you the one sentence that she said that day. Now, did she have amazing tonality? Did she use the stage? Did she have amazing vocabulary? Was she confident and loud and had variation? No, none of that. None of that. So why is it that I still remember what she said, but I've listened to hundreds and hundreds of speakers at conferences, big name CEOs, big name creators, but I can't for the life of me tell you what the heck they talked about? I realize that the secret to being an articulate speaker is not the words, it's not the vocabulary, it's not the gestures, it's how you make someone feel when you speak. The feeling is the secret. I'll say that again. It's how you make someone feel when you speak. And the feeling is the secret. Because you can step on stage and say the most amazing things and the most amazing vocabulary, and people will say, wow, they're a pretty good public speaker. But 15 minutes later, you ask them, what was the message of their speech? What did you take away from their speech? What will you implement in your life? What will you remember tomorrow from their speech? I guarantee you many people can't say a single thing. Oh yeah, the speech was about digital transformation or something. It was about public speaking or something. I don't really remember. Because when you are so focused, or when I was so focused on being overly polished does not benefit the audience. It benefits you. Because you're more worried about your perception and how you come across, and not so much about whether the audience is resonating with what you say. And again, I see this with so many public speaking coaches and communication coaches, and it's something I did early on in my career too, where we overly focus on the delivery so that you sound very articulate and you have all of these amazing words and phrases that you use, but 5%, 10% at most is about how polished you are. The rest of it is about how do you make people feel a certain way. Now, you can have phrases, you can have catch lines, you can have analogies and stories that allow people to do that, a lot like this one sentence made people feel. But I hope you can see that it's not the volume of words, how much you talk. It's not how impressive you can be. That's the other thing. You don't want to try to impress people with your speaking. You want to impress them with your story and your message and make them feel. Because if you can make them feel something, right? Think about the last motivational speaker you saw who made you genuinely feel something. Or the last time you heard a story that made you emotional. I can guarantee you they were probably missing 9 out of the 10 top public speaking components, but they had the story down, which is arguably the most important. So to round this off, in my experience, you're much better off learning to tell stories and learning to speak with the objective of what do I want people to feel? What do I want people to feel by the time I'm done talking? So for me, my goal today is I want you to feel like you don't have to put in extra effort to get other people's approval. I don't want you to feel like you have to worry about yourself when you're on stage. I just want you to focus on, hey, I want my people to really picture this in their mind. When they walk away from my speech, I want them to picture this story that I told about my dad, about my business, about my client, whatever. I just want them to think about that and feel the emotion. Because when you feel an emotion, they feel that emotion too. Have you ever gone to a lecture in class where you loved the subject, but the way the teacher was teaching the subject was so boring that you were no longer interested in it? I know for me, I used to love math until I had a series of teachers who were just so bored talking about math that I lost interest in it, because we communicate not just with words, but also with emotions. If you don't enjoy yourself, I'm not going to enjoy it. If you're so worried about your filler words and your speech and how polished you sound, then I'm going to lose the message. I'm not going to connect with you. So focus on how can I get them to feel something when I'm done talking, because the feeling is a if you can get that down, you will become a top 1% communicator, and you don't have to worry about the tiny little components that you need to work on to become an articulate speaker. So focus on the feeling and do not overly emphasize how you are being perceived.